The purpose of this video is to provide a critique and commentary. As such, the video and images used fall under fair use. Hi, I'm Bill Marion, and you're watching a very special edition of A Nose for Life. This is part 2 of my critique of Rogue One, and I'm very honored and grateful that you're giving me a chance to share my thoughts and opinions about the Star Wars universe, particularly Rogue One. Of course, I'll be talking a lot about A Force Awakens as well. In part 1 of my critique, I talked about why Star Wars is different, and let me just start by saying that if you were disappointed in part 1 of my critique, well, so was I. And you don't have to watch part 1 to appreciate part 2, so don't feel like you have to watch the first part to understand where I'm going in this video. There were several issues in part 1. First of all, I had some issues with YouTube, and for whatever reason, there ended up being some editing issue once it was uploaded. I'm not sure why. And all of that is just to say it didn't turn out as well as I had intended. I hope to make up for it here in part 2. There will be a link to that video here at the top of your screen, and at the end of this video, I've also included an additional link for a fan first reaction. I hope you enjoyed that as well. I strongly recommend you watching that video after this video because it's a great example of what I'll be talking about. But first, a quick recap. In part 1, I talked about why Star Wars movies are just different and why they belong to everyone, so anyone has a voice and an opinion. No one has a monopoly on Star Wars commentaries, ideas, and no one should be considered an expert. And if you think you are, well, let me be the first to say you're not. Neither am I. If you want to hear more about what I have to say as to why Star Wars is unofficially public domain, whether Disney likes it or not, you'll have to watch my first video about Rogue One, and then you'll probably understand why that video was initially demonetized by YouTube. Good old YouTube, looking out for corporate interest. But I won that appeal, so that's that. But seriously, when it comes to Star Wars, we ignore professional critics. That's what makes Star Wars amazing, especially right now when we're also divided about so many different issues. But it's this simple. If you may love or hate something about Star Wars, but if you're watching this video, you'll be in the theater to see The Last Jedi this December. We're fans. We're allowed to say what we want to say about a product we love very much. That makes Star Wars different. You can love Star Wars and be a Democrat, Republican, a Bernie supporter, a Trump supporter, or none of the above, because Star Wars isn't right now. It's not even here. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, which is exactly why it's not only okay for a few Star Wars movies to rely on nostalgia, but I'm grateful of Force Awakens and to a lesser extent Rogue One invited us back in time and space to that galaxy where things are familiar and there are only two sides, a light side and a dark side.
So here's what's funny, as I'm finishing up the editing for this video, I start looking around YouTube to see what the latest Star Wars buzz is, and kept to find out the rumor mill is stating that The Last Jedi might turn the Force and the whole concept of good versus evil into more of a grayish kind of aspect of the Force. And that kind of contradicts what I just said. If that's the case, so be it. It may be very interesting. But I guess we can hang our hat on the fact that the past two Star Wars movies, meaning the Rogue One and The Force Awakens, that the past two movies, well, they focused on nostalgia. But maybe we are turning a different direction for the next movie, The Last Jedi. Who knows?
This video is about the debate of nostalgia versus story when it comes to A Force Awakens and Rogue One. One of the biggest critiques of The Force Awakens is that it leans heavily on Lucas's work, and by all accounts, it's the same story as A New Hope. It doesn't matter if The Last Jedi coming out this December throws us all a huge curveball and we learn that everything in A Force Awakens was a setup to completely dismantle the Star Wars universe. We don't know that at this point. All we have is what we have, which is two movies entirely built on the shoulders of George Lucas's genius. A Force Awakens is so guilty of using nostalgia instead of a compelling story that it even uses images and colors of Christmas. Yes, that's right, Christmas. It's no accident that The Force Awakens was released during the Christmas season. I watch a lot of commentaries and critiques on YouTube and across the web, and no one seems to mention this, and to me this is very obvious. The lightsaber fight at the end of the movie invokes the colors one associates with Christmas. Okay, maybe not the blue lightsaber, but have you seen the video I posted about my Christmas tree? Oh, sure, people may have voted that it's retro and not tacky, but let's face it, they were being nice. Blue isn't often associated with Christmas, but still, this entire scene is saturated with images that are to invoke a galactic courier and Ives. It's even snowing. It's snowing on a planet that's borrowing energy from a star to release massive amounts of energy that can travel at light speed to destroy other planets. gosh, that's terrible. There, I said it. Awful idea. And though my expertise in physics is strictly limited to YouTube videos, meaning that I'm an expert at conspiracy videos that tinker with physics, to store and convert this kind of energy would create so much heat that the planet wouldn't even be habitable. And even if somehow the Empire found a way around that, you'd still have a lot of heat. So, snow? No. The only reason for this planet to be a beautiful winter wonderland is for this lightsaber fight. That's it. It's a big, fat Merry Christmas from J.J. Abrams, and regardless of your religious background or Abrams' religious background, well, it doesn't matter. We all loved it. The box office says we all loved it. So yes, I find the Starkiller base ridiculous in every possible way, but the final act is so beautiful to watch that I don't care. Yes, I love Christmas, and if you're not a Christmas fan, you may have missed it altogether, and that's fine too. But while watching the lightsaber duel, our subconscious sees Christmas lights blinking through snow-covered pines. Am I reading too much into that scene? I don't think so at all. I think it's intentional. Moreover, I think it works. The Force Awakens was about timing. The release date, global timing, and let's face it, we were ready for the next film, and we knew what to expect from Abrams. We were excited before we ever walked in the door, and we weren't disappointed. Rogue One is just as nostalgic, but in a different way, and it too invokes religious overtones. As I stated in Part 1, the director does everything and anything to remind us about the multiple conflicts in the Middle East that are historically religious in nature. But like I said in Part 1 of my critique, Edward's main contribution to the franchise, other than, a mini prequel to A New Hope, is providing perspective. So if A Force Awakens is about timing and Rogue One is about perspective, then are we being told that time changes our perspective? That's real interesting. I'll let you think about that one. Anyway, Edwards shows the Empire's effect not just on the planet, but on the planet's religious heritage. After all, the Emperor has assassinated all of the religious leaders, the only sect who had the power and public trust to depose the Emperor. Edwards provides for us the center of the religious backlash of Palpatine's Order 66. Edwards, whether you realize it or not, is acknowledging Lucas's brilliant ideas that never came to be in the prequels. Everyone hates the prequels, but trust me, there's a backlash coming about the prequels in about 5 years. You'll have to watch Part 1 to hear what I have to say about that. No, I was not a huge fan, but my kids love the prequels. And people don't realize what really took place in the prequels. The Emperor used propaganda, false flag operations, and political manipulation to divide the religious leadership. And then he had them assassinated in cold blood to take absolute control of the Empire. Doesn't that sound better than what we actually see in the prequels? If only that story had been told better, it may have been an amazing trilogy. Gareth lets us see the religious aspect of the Force. It was a little much for me, but I get it, and it gets a pass. It was a bit hokey, and that's why it gets a pass. If you remember from A New Hope, Han calls the Force hokey. And we have to imagine that Hans ran into people who adhere to the religious nature of the Force, and it appears to him to be hokey. But Edwards shows us something else on Jedha. The Empire is suppressing the people and extracting crystals for the Death Star. Watch my first video about more when it comes to this aspect. But I think Edwards was sending a message here, and it's uncomfortable because he never really makes his point. Maybe you won't agree, but I just don't care enough about Jedha to feel terrible when it gets erased by the Death Star. So if Edwards was trying to say something about our conflicts in the Middle East, and maybe he was using Jedha as an analogy, well, I think he may have failed. Other than some uncomfortable images, he doesn't create the empathy needed for us to feel bad when Jedha is eradicated. And here's the thing, if Edwards had been successful at creating this empathy that was needed for some type of analogy, well, this would have been a controversial film at every level. And instead of fans embracing the concept, it would have created mass division. I can imagine screening the original ending and understanding exactly why Disney ordered a lot of reshoots. It's not that Edwards' concept on Jedha wasn't thought-provoking, it's that it's too thought-provoking, too divisive. Yes, we want a gritty Star Wars film. We want Star Wars films for adults, and that's where Lucas missed it making the prequels. Maybe. Again, let me just add, I don't think Lucas missed it entirely, and I think the next generation will re-examine the prequels and probably treat Lucas with a lot more respect. But we don't want to see a retelling of our own tragic situation on the big screen. Right now, what we're looking for is a Norman Rockwell version of Star Wars to escape our own tragic situation, and that's why I'm thankful that Disney had the final say. It's not that Edwards isn't an amazing filmmaker. I think he's great. I think his best work is actually in front of him, and from all accounts, he was more than respectful to George Lucas And he welcomed the changes Disney made to his film. At least that's how he came across. He seems like a real team player. Disney is the industry leader at serving society nostalgia. And be honest, nostalgia serves a purpose, especially when what's going on in the world is just too grim or unthinkable to ponder. Nostalgia serves a purpose when you just can't deal with an election or the protest or working more for less money. And let's face it, most of us are doing that very thing. Nostalgia reminds us that things have been better before, a lot better. And knowing that reminds us that maybe things can be better again. Yes, nostalgia can be propagandized, and it can even skew the truth. And Disney has been guilty of that a time or two in their past. But sometimes we need Disney's nostalgic machine more than we need an actual fleshed out story. Sometimes nostalgia is the story, and we're thankful for it. Edwards gives us a break from reality. He gives us a break in an unknown magical story that is now permanently attached to the Star Wars universe, and maybe Disney helped Edwards keep it in that galaxy far, far away so we could all continue to sit together at the table of plenty without fighting over who sits where. And maybe you have to like Norman Rockwell to get that, or at least know some of his work. But make no mistake that Edwards and Disney, what they accomplished provides us another season to hang on our wall that infuses memories rather than to remind us of anything specific. You think I've invoked Norman Rockwell enough in that? Anyway, we cheer when we see the villainous Darth Vader in the final scene doing what we've always wanted to see Darth Vader do. Why? Well, because we know the outcome. We should have been horrified. Imagine seeing that scene before we know the outcome. Darth Vader would have just seemed just vicious. I mean, it's like something out of a Friday the 13th movie, and we love it. We're not horrified because we have the luxury of knowing the outcome. So we can celebrate our heroes and villains. And again, this is what Disney does best. With Disney, we can applaud our villains and cheer on our heroes at the same time. It helps that we already know that there is hope for the galaxy. We already know that the Death Star, all three of them, are blown away. But when we see Princess Leia's face, it's the greatest moment in the film. Everyone that left the theater that night, and remember I watched Rogue One the night before it officially opened, well, we all left teary-eyed. That moment with Princess Leia was the ultimate nostalgic moment. It didn't matter that she wasn't really a part of the movie, and at that moment she became the most important aspect of the plot, and it doesn't matter that it's kind of cheesy. And I don't want to hear about the CGI and if it was good or bad. If that was what you were focusing on, I think you missed the point. That was Princess Leia. That was Princess Leia before she met Han, before she met Luke, and just moments before she records, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." Sometimes nostalgia is what we lean upon when the present and future seem impossible. Sometimes nostalgia gives us hope. People that bash nostalgia in any area, well, they're ignorant, because nostalgia has a place and a purpose, especially when you're longing for a place in a galaxy far, far away. I'm Bill Marion, and you've been watching A Nose for Life. I am so grateful that you took time out of your day or your night to watch all of this video, or at least scroll through it. Nose for Life is a different kind of YouTube channel. We don't necessarily fit the norm. I want you to be a part of that community. Your comments are important. We do not use any kind of algorithm when it comes to our comment section. Anything that you have to say, good or bad, we leave it in the comments. So you are welcome to be a part of this community and comment. And all I ask is that if you do comment, hit that like button and subscribe button and be a part of the community. Again, thanks for watching.